The phone vibrates against the cool marble of the kitchen island. A low, insistent hum that cuts through the quiet afternoon. It's a number I don't recognize, a string of digits with a sterile, corporate area code. My hand hesitates. I should ignore it. It's probably just another sales call, another automated voice promising to lower my interest rates. But something, a cold prickle of intuition, makes me swipe to answer. Hello. Am I speaking with Clara Hayes? The voice on the other end is smooth, professional, and utterly devoid of warmth. It's the kind of voice that delivers bad news for a living. This is she. Ms. Hayes, my name is David, and I'm calling from the Fraud Prevention Department at Capital One. We're seeing a highly unusual transaction attempting to post to your black card account, and I need to verify it with you before we approve the charge. My heart doesn't drop. It just stops. A complete, sudden cessation of movement in my chest. The black card. That's my card. My name is on it, but it's linked to the primary account, the one Liam and I share. The one I built. He has a supplementary card, a sleek piece of metal he likes to flash at business dinners. A transaction? I manage to say, my voice sounding distant, as if it's coming from the other side of the room. Yes, ma'am. From Tiffany and Company on Fifth Avenue. The charge is for $87,450. $87,000. The number hangs in the air, obscene and glittering. Tiffany's. The name itself is a symbol, a promise wrapped in a little blue box. Liam isn't with me. He's supposed to be in a board meeting downtown, a marathon session finalizing the Q3 projections. He texted me an hour ago. This is going to be a long one, babe. Don't wait up. I can see it all. I can see him standing there, under the soft, forgiving lights of the showroom. I can see her. The woman whose name I don't yet know, but whose presence I have felt like a ghost in our home for months. I see her slender hand, her manicured fingers pointing at a cushion-cut diamond, her eyes wide with feigned surprise and delight. I see Liam, smiling that charming, confident smile that once made me feel like the only woman in the world. The smile he's now giving to her, paid for with my money. My inheritance. The seed money that started the business he now calls his own. Ms. Hayes, are you there? The world comes rushing back in. The scent of lemons from the bowl on the counter. The distant hum of the refrigerator. The blood starting to move in my veins again, slow and thick like sludge. He's not just cheating on me. He's asking me to pay for the ring he's going to put on his mistress's finger. The sheer, unmitigated audacity of it is a physical blow. It wins me. David from Fraud Prevention is waiting. He's just a man doing his job, unaware that he's holding a detonator and asking for my permission to press the button. I have a choice. I can say yes. I can approve the charge, let the transaction go through. Let him have his perfect, triumphant moment. Let him slide that obscenely expensive ring onto her finger. I can gather the evidence, add it to the pile, and use it in the inevitable, messy divorce. That's the smart play, the strategic move.
Or
I can burn it all down.
Right now.
In the middle of that hushed, elegant showroom, I can turn his moment of triumph into a public spectacle of humiliation. I can let him stand there, card declined, his grand gesture collapsing into a pathetic, awkward silence. I can make him look small as he has made me feel. A cold, clear calm settles over me. It's a feeling I haven't had in months. The fog of doubt and anxiety evaporates, replaced by a diamond-hard certainty. I take a slow, deliberate breath. No, I say, my voice steady, each word a chip of ice. Do not approve that charge. There's a pause. Okay, Ms. Hayes. We'll place a temporary hold.
No, interrupt.
Not a temporary hold. I want you to freeze the account. All of them. His card, my card, everything linked to this portfolio. Shut it all down. Effective immediately. Ma'am, are you sure? This will block all pending and future transactions. I am absolutely 100% sure. I say. Freeze it.
Now.
There's a sound of typing, a few clicks that sound like tumblers falling into place in the lock of a vault. The account is now frozen, Ms. Hayes. Thank you, David, I say, and I hang up the phone. I place it back on the marble, perfectly aligned with the edge of the counter. And then I stand there, in the silent kitchen, and I wait for the explosion I know is coming. If you've ever felt that cold click of certainty, that moment when the world shifts and you know nothing will ever be the same, tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're new here, please subscribe. Your support means more than you know. Just 5 years ago, this kitchen was a blueprint, a dream sketched on a napkin at a greasy spoon diner. Liam and I were celebrating our first major contract. We were broke, exhausted, and deliriously happy. He had the vision, the charisma, the uncanny ability to sell a dream to a room full of skeptics. I had the brains, the strategy, and the $20,000 inheritance from my grandmother that served as our entire startup capital. We were a team. Invincible. His name was on the door, Sterling Innovations, but my DNA was in the foundation. Our life was built on a series of shared promises. We promised to be partners, in business and in life. We promised that everything we built, we would build together. Our finances were the ultimate symbol of that trust. We didn't have his money and my money. We had our money. One joint account for the business, one for our life. When the company finally took off, when the money started pouring in, the first thing we did was apply for the black card. It felt like a milestone, a tangible symbol of our success. I was the primary account holder. It was my credit score, my financial history that secured it, but we both had a card. It was a point of pride for him, whipping it out at restaurants, the heavy metal making a satisfying thud on the table. My wife spoils me, he'd say with a wink, and I'd smile, feeling a warm glow of pride. It was our success. We had earned it. I walk through our house now, the house that success built. It's a monument to a life I thought was real. The floor-to-ceiling windows look out over a city that once felt full of promise. The minimalist furniture, all clean lines and muted tones, suddenly feels cold and impersonal, like a hotel lobby. I trace my fingers over the spine of a book on the shelf, a first edition he bought me for our anniversary. Every object in this house is a memory, and every memory is now tainted a lie. The signs were there, of course. They always are. Little things at first. A new obsession with the gym. Phone calls taken in the other room, his voice dropping to a low murmur. Unexplained expenses on the credit card statement. Dinners for two at restaurants I'd never been to, floral arrangements sent to an address I didn't recognize. When I asked, the excuses were always plausible, slickly delivered. A client dinner, babe. You know how it is, flowers for a new hire's mother. She's in the hospital. He had an answer for everything. He was a salesman after all. He sold me a story, and for a long time, I wanted desperately to buy it. I told myself it was the stress of the business. I told myself I was being paranoid. I loved him. I trusted him. Or rather, I trusted the man I thought he was. The man who held my hand in that diner and promised me the world. It's a special kind of pain to realize you're married to a stranger. To look at the person sleeping next to you and understand that you don't know them at all. The intimacy becomes a violation, the shared memories a fiction. The quiet of the house is deafening. I find myself checking my phone every few seconds, my thumb hovering over his contact photo. A picture of us in Italy 2 years ago. We look happy. We were happy, weren't we? The doubt is a poison, seeping backwards in time, corrupting everything. Was any of it real? Or was I just a stepping stone? The woman with the seed money and the business acumen, useful until a younger, more decorative model came along. My grandmother's voice echoes in my head. Never let a man be your financial plan, Clara. She was a formidable woman who had been widowed young and built a small real estate empire on her own. She'd given me the inheritance with a stern warning. This is for you. To build your own life. Don't ever let anyone take that away from you. I thought I was honoring her legacy by investing in our shared dream. Now, it feels like I betrayed her trust. And my own. The phone rings. It's him. My thumb trembles as I stare at his face on the screen. I let it ring.
Once. Twice.
3 times. It goes to voicemail. I know what the message will be. A confused, then angry tirade. A demand to know what's going on. I'm not ready to talk to him. Not yet. The cold calm I felt earlier is beginning to fray at the edges, replaced by a tremor of fear. What have I done? I've started a war. And I have no idea if I'm prepared to fight it. A second call comes through immediately. This time, it's a number I don't know. I answer, my voice a little shaky. Hello. A woman's voice, high-pitched and frantic. Is this Clara? Liam's wife. The mistress. Of course. He probably handed her the phone, too flustered to speak himself. Who is this? I ask, my voice colder than I intended. My name is Amelia, she says, a tremor in her voice. Something's happened to Liam. We were at Tiffany's and he collapsed. His card was declined, and he fell. An ambulance is on the way. You need to get here. He collapsed. The words don't register at first. A stroke? A heart attack? The image of him lying on the cold, tiled floor of a jewelry store, surrounded by strangers and glittering diamonds, is surreal. My first instinct, a deep-seated, conditioned response, is a surge of worry. Is he okay? But it's immediately swamped by a wave of something else. Something dark and ugly. Satisfaction. The satisfaction is so potent it makes me feel sick to my stomach. He didn't just get embarrassed. He got theatrical.
He made a scene.
Even in his humiliation, he had to be the center of attention. Where are you? I ask, my tone flat. She rattles off the address. Please hurry, she whimpers. He was asking for you. Asking for me. The irony is so thick I could choke on it. He was buying a ring for another woman, and when his world came crashing down, he asked for his wife. The sheer, pathetic dependency of it is staggering. I hang up without another word. I stand in my silent, perfect kitchen, and I don't move. I don't grab my keys. I don't run for the door. I simply stand there, listening to the ticking of the clock on the wall, each second marking the end of one life and the beginning of another. The war hasn't just started. The first shot has been fired, and it was a direct hit. The first concrete proof had arrived 3 weeks ago, tucked inside the pocket of a dry-cleaned suit. A receipt. Not for client dinner or a business lunch. It was from a lingerie store. A place with a name like Siren's Kiss. The purchase was for an amount that suggested more than just a single, practical item. It was a trousseau. I remember my fingers going numb as I held the flimsy piece of paper. It felt like a confession. I didn't confront him that night. I laid the receipt on his pillow and waited. When he came to bed, he saw it. He didn't flinch. He didn't even look guilty. He just sighed, a weary, put-upon sound, as if I were the one causing the problem. It's not what you think, Clara, he'd said, his voice smooth as polished stone. Then what is it, Liam? I'd asked, my own voice trembling. Because it looks like you spent $500 on lingerie that I've certainly never seen. He'd launched into a story so elaborate, so full of convoluted details, that it was almost impressive. It was a gift for a colleague's wife, a group present for her bachelorette party. He'd been tasked with picking it up. He just hadn't gotten around to getting reimbursed yet. He painted a picture of himself as the helpful, beleaguered friend, trapped by female social obligations he didn't understand. He was so convincing that for a moment, a tiny, desperate part of me almost believed him. He was a master at turning reality on its head, at making me feel like the crazy one, the suspicious, untrusting wife. It was a form of psychological warfare, and he was a brilliant tactician. You have to trust me, he'd finished, his eyes boring into mine, full of false sincerity. Our whole life is built on trust. I didn't fight. I didn't scream. I just nodded, a slow, hollow movement of my head. And in that moment, something inside me broke. The trust he spoke of wasn't a foundation anymore. It was a ruin. And I was standing alone in the wreckage. That night, I slept in the guest room. It was the first time in our 10 years together that we hadn't slept in the same bed. The distance between the two rooms felt like a chasm, an unbridgeable canyon that had opened up in the heart of our home. In the days that followed, I existed in a state of suspended animation. I went through the motions of my life. Work, meals, conversations, but I felt disconnected from it all, like I was watching a movie of someone else's life. I became a ghost in my own home, haunting the periphery of his new, secret world. I started paying closer attention. I became a detective in the crime scene of my own marriage. His phone, which used to lie casually on the nightstand, was now always in his pocket or face down on the counter. He'd set a new, more complex password. I saw him smiling at texts, a private, intimate smile he no longer directed at me. The late nights at the office became more frequent, the business trips longer and more vaguely defined. He was pulling away, and the space he left behind was filled with a cold, echoing silence. I tried to adapt. I tried to pretend. I hosted a dinner party for some of our friends, playing the part of the happy, successful wife. I smiled until my face ached. I listened to Liam tell charming anecdotes about his work, anecdotes that now sounded like carefully constructed lies. I watched him, this man I had loved so fiercely, and I felt nothing but a profound and terrifying emptiness. Our friends looked at us, at our beautiful home, at the life we had built, and saw a perfect picture. They didn't see the cracks spiderwebbing beneath the surface. They didn't see that the whole thing was about to shatter. One evening, I found myself going through his credit card statements online. It was a violation of his privacy, a line I had never crossed before. But trust was already dead. Privacy seemed like a moot point. I scrolled through pages and pages of charges, and a pattern began to emerge. 2 lattes from the same coffee shop every morning, when his office had a state-of-the-art espresso machine. Lunches at quiet, out-of-the-way bistros. A recurring charge for a parking garage near a residential building in a neighborhood we never frequented. It was a breadcrumb trail, leading to a life I wasn't a part of. The pain was a physical thing. It was a constant, dull ache in my chest, a tightness in my throat that made it hard to breathe. There were moments when it was so overwhelming that I'd have to lock myself in the bathroom, turn on the shower to muffle the sound, and just sob. I was grieving. I was grieving the loss of my husband, the loss of my marriage, the loss of the future I thought we were building together. He was still there, physically, but the man I had married was gone. In his place was a stranger who lied with every breath and looked at me with eyes that held no recognition, no love, only a mild, irritated impatience. I was an inconvenience, a problem to be managed. I felt utterly, completely alone. Who could I talk to? Our friends were his friends too. My family loved him. Admitting the truth felt like a failure on my part, as if his betrayal was a reflection of some inadequacy in me. So I kept it all inside, a toxic secret that was eating me alive. I was losing weight. I wasn't sleeping. I would lie awake at night, next to the warm, breathing body of my husband, and feel a cold that had nothing to do with the temperature of the room. It was the cold of absolute solitude. I was adrift, with no anchor and no land in sight. The problems intensified with a terrifying speed. It was as if, once he got away with the first lie, he grew bolder, more reckless. The late nights stretched into all-nighters. The business trips now included weekends. He stopped bothering with elaborate excuses, offering only vague, one-word answers. Work, a client, a meeting, he was erecting a wall around himself, brick by brick, and I was on the outside looking in. The financial bleed became a hemorrhage. It wasn't just dinners and flowers anymore. There were hotel suites, airline tickets for 2, booked to romantic destinations, cleverly disguised as business expenses. There were purchases from designer boutiques, jewelry stores, not Tiffany's, not yet, but expensive enough to make my stomach clench. He was building a second life, a shadow life, and he was funding it with our shared resources. He was stealing from me, from the company I had helped build from nothing. The emotional toll was devastating. Living with the constant deception was like living with a low-grade fever. I was perpetually exhausted, my nerves frayed, my senses on high alert. Every ping of his phone made me jump. Every time he walked into a room, I would scan his face for tells, for signs of guilt or deceit. I was becoming a person I didn't recognize, suspicious, anxious, and filled with a simmering, impotent rage. I tried to confront him again, this time armed with the credit card statements. I printed them out, highlighting the questionable charges in yellow, like a prosecuting attorney building a case. I laid them on the dining room table, a mountain of paper evidence of his betrayal. He didn't even look at them. He just looked at me, his expression one of deep, profound disappointment, as if I were the one who had let him down. "I can't believe you did this, Clara," he said, his voice quiet, laced with sorrow. "Going behind my back, spying on me. After everything we've been through. I thought we trusted each other." He flipped the script so masterfully, so completely, that I was left speechless. He wasn't the villain I was. I was the snooping, paranoid wife who didn't trust her hardworking husband. He spoke of trust as if it were a sacred vow that I had broken. The hypocrisy was so breathtaking it left me dizzy. "These are business expenses, Clara," he said, waving a dismissive hand at the pile of papers. "Do you have any idea the kind of pressure I'm under? The things I have to do to keep our clients happy, to keep this company afloat, to provide this life for us." He gestured around the room at the expensive art on the walls, the designer furniture. "This doesn't just happen. It takes sacrifice." He was using the life we built together as a weapon against me. He was framing his infidelity as a noble sacrifice for my benefit. I was supposed to be grateful. I was supposed to apologize. I looked at this man, this stranger with my husband's face, and I felt a chill that went bone deep. He wasn't just a cheater. He was a manipulator of the highest order. He had no remorse.
No guilt.
Only a bottomless well of self-justification. The fight, if you could call it that, ended with him storming out, claiming he needed to get some air. He didn't come home that night. I sat at the dining room table until the sun came up, surrounded by the evidence of his lies, and I felt a new kind of despair settle over me. It wasn't just my marriage that was in trouble. It was my company, my legacy. My entire life was tied up with this man, a man who was capable of looking me in the eye and telling me that the sky was green, and almost making me believe it. I was trapped. The days that followed were a blur of cold shoulders and tense silences. We were roommates, cohabiting in a museum of a dead marriage. The final illusion of partnership had been stripped away. He was openly contemptuous of me now, his words laced with a cutting sarcasm. He treated me like an employee he was waiting to fire, an obstacle in his path. The love was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resentment. He resented me for knowing, for being a witness to his betrayal. It was my very existence that was now the problem. I was the inconvenient truth he couldn't wish away. The major shift came on a Tuesday afternoon. It was a day like any other, gray and unremarkable. I was working from home, trying to distract myself by burying myself in financial projections for our company. Liam was supposedly at an off-site retreat with the senior management team. No phones allowed, a full digital detox. That's what he'd told me. I was digging through some files on our shared server, looking for an old contract, when I stumbled upon a folder I'd never seen before. It was buried deep in the directory, mislabeled as Archive Tax Docs 2018 Curiosity, or perhaps a premonition, made me click on it. It was password protected. Of course. I tried the usual passwords: our anniversary, his mother's birthday, the dog's name. Nothing. I sat back, thinking, what would Liam, in his infinite arrogance, use as a password for his most secret files? And then it hit me. It was so obvious, so egotistical, that I almost laughed. I typed it in, STRLING1. His name, the name of the company, and the number 1. The folder opened. It wasn't tax documents. It was a collection of legal papers, email threads, and financial spreadsheets that laid out, in cold, black and white detail, a plan so ruthless, so diabolical, that I had to read it 3 times to fully comprehend the scope of the betrayal. He wasn't just having an affair. He wasn't just planning to leave me. He was planning to take everything. He had been working with a lawyer, a shark from a top corporate firm, for the past 6 months. They had drafted a new operating agreement for Sterling Innovations, one that would dilute my 50% share down to a meaningless 5%, recategorizing my initial investment as a simple loan, which he had already repaid, into a holding account I had no access to. He had been systematically moving assets, diverting profits, and creating a narrative supported by falsified board meeting minutes and emails that I had been an absentee partner for years, uninvolved in the day-to-day operations of the company. There were emails between him and his lawyer discussing the best way to manage Clara's exit. They talked about me as if I were a line item on a balance sheet, a problem to be solved. There was a draft of a post-nuptial agreement they were planning to pressure me into signing, an agreement that would have me waive all rights to the business and any future profits in exchange for a paltry, one-time settlement. But the most damning thing, the thing that made the air leave my lungs in a painful rush, was an email thread between Liam and his father. In it, Liam laid out the entire plan. He talked about his new life with Amelia, I now realized. He wrote about how he couldn't wait to be free of me, how I was holding him back, and then the final, brutal line. Once the company is fully secured and Clara is out of the picture, I can finally build the life I was always meant to have. She was a necessary first step, but her part in the story is over. A necessary first step. The seed money. The business plan I wrote. The all-nighters I pulled. The sacrifices I made. I wasn't his partner. I was his angel investor. A launch pad. And now that his rocket had taken off, he was ready to jettison the booster stage and leave me to burn up on re-entry. The pain was so immense, so all-encompassing, that it transcended tears. It was a white-hot, silent agony that burned away every last trace of love, every lingering shred of hope I had for our marriage. The grief was gone. The sadness was gone. All that was left was a pure, cold, and utterly clarifying rage. He hadn't just broken my heart. He had tried to break my spirit. He had tried to erase me from our shared history, to steal my legacy, to render me powerless. He had underestimated me. He had mistaken my love for weakness, my trust for stupidity. He thought I was just a wife. He had forgotten that I was a founder. He had forgotten that I knew this company, its finances, its contracts, its vulnerabilities, better than he ever would. I closed the laptop. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water, my hand perfectly steady. The woman who had cried in the shower, who had felt lost and alone, was gone. In her place was someone else. Someone colder, harder, and infinitely more dangerous. This was no longer about a broken marriage. It was about a war for my life's work. And as I stood there, in the quiet house he thought he was about to own, I made a new promise to myself. He started this war, but I was going to finish it, and I was not going to lose. The first call I made was not to a divorce lawyer. It was to a woman named Evelyn Reed. She wasn't just a lawyer. She was a legend in the world of forensic accounting and corporate litigation. They called her the surgeon because she could dissect a company's financials with brutal, unerring precision, finding every hidden asset, every fraudulent transaction, every lie buried in the numbers. She was expensive. She was ruthless. And she was exactly what I needed. I met her the next day in her sterile, intimidatingly minimalist office high above the city. She was a woman in her 60s with sharp, intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor that I found instantly comforting. I didn't cry. I didn't get emotional. I laid out the facts calmly and concisely, walking her through the documents I had found, the history of the company, and the extent of Liam's financial and marital betrayals. I had printed everything, organized it into a neat, tabbed binder. Evelyn listened without interruption, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers. "He's sloppy," she said, her voice a low, gravelly hum. "Arrogant men always are. They think they're smarter than everyone else, so they leave tracks. Your husband, Ms. Hayes, has left a superhighway." For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. "He has underestimated you," she continued, her eyes locking onto mine. "That is our single greatest advantage. He sees you as an emotional, heartbroken wife. He won't be expecting a strategic, well-armed opponent. We will not be emotional. We will be methodical. We will be silent. And when we strike, it will be decisive. We spent the next 2 weeks in a state of intense, clandestine preparation. Evelyn and her team of forensic accountants descended upon Sterling Innovations financials like a SEAL team on a covert operation. Working from the copies of the files I had provided, they began to unravel the tangled web of Liam's deceit. They found the holding companies he'd set up in Delaware. They traced the diverted profits. They uncovered the falsified invoices he'd used to funnel money to himself, money he was using to fund his lavish shadow life with Amelia. Every day brought a new revelation, a new layer of his treachery. It was worse than I could have ever imagined. He hadn't just been stealing from our shared accounts. He had been systematically gutting the company, leveraging its assets for personal loans, and cooking the books to hide the damage. He was a parasite, killing his host. While Evelyn's team worked on the financials, I focused on the personal front. I became the perfect, oblivious wife. I moved back into our bedroom. I suggested we go to marriage counseling, an idea he readily agreed to, no doubt seeing it as the perfect cover, a way to keep me placated and distracted while he finalized his plans to destroy me. The counseling sessions were a masterclass in manipulation. He would cry, confessing to the affair, painting it as a terrible mistake born of stress and loneliness. He would beg for my forgiveness, promising to end it, to do whatever it took to save our marriage. He was a phenomenal actor. He almost had me believing him again. But now I could see the calculation behind his eyes, the cold, strategic mind working behind the mask of contrition. I played my part, too. I was the wounded, hesitant wife, unsure if I could ever trust him again, but willing to try. It was a nauseating, soul-crushing performance, but it was necessary. I had to keep him close. I had to keep him from suspecting that the ground was about to open up beneath his feet. Evelyn's advice was my mantra. Let him think he's winning. The more confident he is, the harder he will fall.
So I let him win.
I let him think his plan was working perfectly. I watched as he became more and more relaxed, more and more arrogant. He thought he had me exactly where he wanted me, sad, broken, and desperate to believe his lies. The final piece of my own plan fell into place a week before the Tiffany's incident. I knew from the documents I'd found that Liam was planning a trip to the Hamptons with Amelia. It was meant to be a celebration, a pre-victory lap. He had booked a ridiculously expensive rental house on the beach. I also knew, from a stray email I'd seen, that he was planning to propose on that trip. He was a cliché wrapped in a lie. The trap was set. I knew he would use the black card for the ring. It was a status symbol, a part of his performance. He would want the biggest, most impressive diamond he could afford, and he would want to pay for it with the card that symbolized the success he believed was his alone. I spoke with Evelyn. When he makes the purchase, I'm going to freeze the accounts. She raised an eyebrow. It's a dramatic move. Are you prepared for the fallout? I'm prepared, I said, my voice steady. It's time to stop playing defense. It's time to send a message. She nodded slowly, a small, approving smile on her lips. All right, Ms. Hayes. Let the games begin. So I waited. I knew it was coming. Every day was a quiet agony of anticipation. I went to work. I sat through our sham counseling sessions. I made dinner. I lived my life on the surface of a volcano, knowing it was about to erupt. And then that Tuesday afternoon, the phone rang. David from Fraud Prevention. Tiffany and Company. $87,000. It was all happening exactly as I had foreseen. Freezing the account wasn't just a moment of spontaneous revenge. It was a calculated first strike. It was the signal. The opening salvo in a war he didn't even know he was fighting. It was designed to do one thing: throw him completely off balance, to shatter his confidence, to humiliate him at the peak of his arrogance, and to make him desperate. And a desperate man makes mistakes. I didn't go to the hospital. I let him stew in the chaos he had created. I let him deal with the frantic Amelia, the concerned doctors, the questions he couldn't answer. My phone blew up with calls and texts. From him. From her. From his parents, who accused me of being a heartless monster. I ignored them all. I turned my phone off. Instead, I called Evelyn. "He's in the hospital," I said. "He collapsed at the store." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Stress-induced, I imagine. Public humiliation can be very taxing on the cardiovascular system. Her voice was dry, devoid of sympathy. "What's our next move?" "We accelerate the timeline," I said. "He's vulnerable. He's off-kilter. Now is the time to strike." "I agree," she said. "I'll have the papers drawn up. We'll be ready to serve him by morning." That night, for the first time in months, I slept. A deep, dreamless, and profoundly peaceful sleep. The storm had broken, and I was ready for the flood. The climax wasn't the collapse in the jewelry store. That was just the appetizer. The main course was served 24 hours later, in the sterile, beige quiet of his private hospital room. I arrive looking every bit the concerned wife. I'm dressed conservatively, in a simple black dress. My hair is pulled back. My face is a carefully constructed mask of worried exhaustion. I'm carrying a small bouquet of white lilies, the kind you bring to a funeral. The symbolism is for my benefit alone. Amelia is there when I walk in, perched on the edge of a chair, her eyes red and puffy. She's younger than I expected, with that kind of generic, Instagram-filtered prettiness. She looks up at me with a mixture of fear and defiance. The other woman, the homewrecker. I feel a flicker of something, pity, maybe, but it's quickly extinguished by the cold fire of my resolve. She is a symptom, not the disease. Liam is propped up in the bed, looking pale and diminished. Wires and tubes connect him to a host of beeping machines. He has the petulant, aggrieved look of a man who believes the world has done him a great injustice. When he sees me, his expression shifts to one of relief, mingled with a healthy dose of righteous anger. "Clara," he says, his voice raspy. "Thank God. Where have you been? I've been calling you. My parents have been calling you." I ignore Amelia completely. I walk to his bedside and place the lilies on the table. "I had things to attend to," I say, my voice soft, neutral. "Things to attend to," he sputters. "I could have been dying. I had a heart episode, Clara. A cardiac event. And you were, what? At the spa." "The doctors told me it was a vasovagal syncope episode," I reply, my tone still placid. "A fancy term for fainting, brought on by extreme stress. They said your heart is perfectly healthy." I turn my head slightly, my eyes finally landing on Amelia. "You must be Amelia. Liam has told me so much about you." This is a lie, of course. He's never mentioned her name. The color drains from her face. She looks at Liam, a silent, panicked question in her eyes. Liam's own face hardens. "What is she doing here, Liam?" I ask, my voice still gentle, as if I'm asking about the weather. "She brought me here," he says defensively. "She was with me when it happened." "Yes," I say, nodding slowly. "At Tiffany's." "I know. I got the call from the credit card company. An $87,000 charge. I assumed it was fraud. After all, you were supposed to be in a board meeting." Silly me. The sarcasm is subtle, a razor blade wrapped in silk. He flinches. "My card was declined," he says, his voice rising in frustration. "In the middle of the store. And then you froze the accounts. All of them. What the hell is wrong with you, Clara? Do you have any idea how humiliating that was?" "I imagine it was," I say. "Tell me, Liam, what exactly were you buying?" He has the decency to look away, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape route. Amelia stands up, her hands twisting in front of her. "I think I should go," she murmurs. "No," I say, my voice suddenly sharp, commanding. "You should stay. You're a part of this story. You deserve to hear how it ends." She freezes, looking like a frightened deer. I turn my full attention back to Liam. The mask of the concerned wife drops away. My face is cold, my eyes hard. The temperature in the room seems to drop several degrees. You're right, Liam, I say. I did freeze the accounts. And that was just the beginning. I reach into my purse and pull out a thick manila envelope. I place it on the bed, on top of his blanket. He stares at it as if it's a venomous snake. What is this? He whispers. That, I say, is the end of the line. He tears it open, his hands trembling slightly. Inside are 2 documents. The first is a petition for divorce, citing adultery and financial malfeasance. The second is a temporary restraining order, legally barring him from the offices of Sterling Innovations, from accessing any company assets, and from contacting me or any of our employees. He reads the first page, his face contorting in disbelief, then rage. You're divorcing me? You're divorcing me? After one mistake. One mistake. I laugh, a short, bitter sound. Oh, Liam. This isn't about the affair. The affair is just tacky. This is about fraud. This is about theft. This is about you trying to steal my company. From my purse, I pull out a second, even thicker envelope. This one I don't give to him. I just hold it. This, I say, tapping the envelope, is a copy of every email you sent your lawyer. Every falsified document. Every illegal transfer. It's the entire blueprint of your plan to push me out, dilute my shares, and steal the company that I built with my own money and my own work. My forensic accounting team was particularly impressed with the holding companies you set up. It was, and I quote, amateurish but audacious. The blood drains from his face. He looks like he's been punched in the stomach. He's staring at me, but he's not seeing his wife anymore. He's seeing a stranger, an executioner. How? He stammers. How did you? You used our anniversary as the password for the archived tax docs folder. You sentimental fool. I say, my voice dripping with contempt. You're sloppy. Arrogant men always are. He collapses back against the pillows, the fight completely gone out of him. He looks at Amelia, then back at me, his eyes wide with a dawning, horrific understanding. He thought he was playing chess, and he just realized he's been playing checkers, and I've already taken all of his pieces. What do you want, Clara? He whispers, his voice hoarse. What do I want? I take a step closer to the bed, leaning in, my voice dropping to a low, intense whisper. I want you to sign the divorce papers. You will agree to my terms. You will walk away from Sterling Innovations with nothing. Not a single share, not a single dollar, not a single client. You will sign a non-disclosure and a non-compete agreement so airtight that you won't be able to work in this industry for the next 10 years. You will disappear from my life and from the world that we built. You can't do that, he says, a pathetic whimper. The company is my life. The company is my life. I correct him, my voice like steel. And you tried to take it from me. If you refuse to sign, this second envelope goes directly to the district attorney's office. You haven't just been unfaithful, Liam. You've committed wire fraud, embezzlement, and corporate malfeasance. You'll be trading your corner office for a jail cell, your Brioni suits for an orange jumpsuit. So you see, you have a choice. You can be broke and free, or you can be broke and incarcerated. The choice is yours. A profound, suffocating silence fills the room. The only sound is the steady, rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor next to his bed, a machine that insists he is perfectly fine, even as his entire world has just been reduced to rubble. He looks at Amelia, his eyes pleading, but she's staring at me, her face a mask of shock and dawning horror. She's finally realizing what kind of man she's attached herself to. She's realizing that the dream he sold her was built on a foundation of lies and theft, and the whole glittering facade has just come crashing down. She slowly backs away, towards the door. I have to go, she says, and she flees the room without a backward glance. She knows a sinking ship when she sees one. Liam is alone now, utterly and completely. He looks at me, and for the first time, I see genuine fear in his eyes. Not anger, not arrogance, just the pure, primal terror of a man who has lost everything and knows, with absolute certainty, that he has no one to blame but himself. He picks up a pen from the bedside table, his hand shaking so violently he can barely hold it. He pulls the divorce papers towards him. "You win, Clara," he whispers, the words catching in his throat. "You win." He signs the papers. My victory isn't loud or triumphant. It's silent and cold and absolute. The aftermath is not a celebration. It's an excavation. I spend the next 6 months digging my life and my company out from the rubble of Liam's destruction. The divorce is finalized with quiet, brutal efficiency. He signs everything I put in front of him, his lawyer advising him that it's the only way to avoid prosecution. He walks away with his personal effects and a mountain of debt he's accrued funding his affair. He disappears, moving back in with his parents in another state, a disgraced, broken man. I never see or hear from him again. Taking back full control of Sterling Innovations is a monumental task. Liam's mismanagement and embezzlement have left the company wounded, bleeding cash and morale. My first act as the sole CEO is to call an all-hands meeting. I stand before my employees, the people whose livelihoods depend on this company, and I tell them the truth. Not the sordid details of the affair, but the facts of the financial betrayal. I lay out the challenges we face, the depth of the hole we're in. I don't sugarcoat it. And then I lay out my plan to fix it. A plan for transparency, for restructuring, for rebuilding. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But as I speak, I see the fear in their eyes being replaced by something else. Respect. Determination. A shared sense of purpose. They had all suspected something was wrong. They had seen Liam's erratic behavior, his profligate spending. My honesty is a balm, a promise of a new, more stable future. We have lost some clients, scared off by the instability. But the ones who stay because they believe in me. The work is grueling. I'm the first one in the office, and the last one to leave. I pour every ounce of my energy, my intellect, and my will into saving the company. There are days when I'm so exhausted I can barely see straight. There are nights when I go home to that big, empty house, and the silence is so loud it feels like a physical presence. The loneliness is profound. Victory, I learn, can be a very solitary place. I sell the house. It's too full of ghosts, of memories that have been poisoned. I buy a smaller apartment in the city, a place with no history, a blank slate. I slowly, piece by piece, begin to build a new life. A life that is entirely my own. There are moments of bitterness, moments of rage. I think of the years I wasted, the love I gave to a man who saw me as a means to an end. But those moments become fewer and farther between. They are replaced by a quiet, deep-seated pride. I look at my company, which is slowly, steadily recovering. It's stronger now, leaner, more resilient. It's a reflection of the woman I have become. One afternoon, about a year after the divorce, I'm sitting in my office, looking out at the city skyline. My phone buzzes. It's a text from an unknown number. My heart gives a familiar, reflexive lurch, a phantom pain from an old wound. I open it. It's a single sentence. "I heard about what you've done with the company. Congratulations. You were always the brilliant one foot." There's no name, but I know who it's from. I stare at the words for a long time. It's not an apology. It's not a plea for forgiveness. It's a statement of fact, an admission of a truth he had spent years trying to deny. It's the closest thing to a surrender I will ever get from him. I don't reply. I simply delete the message. His part of my story is over. He is a ghost from a past life, a lesson learned in the harshest way possible. I have learned that trust is a precious, fragile thing, and that sometimes the only person you can truly count on is yourself. I have learned that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about how you get back up, how you rebuild from the ashes. My victory wasn't just about winning back my company. It was about winning back myself, my confidence, my power, my future. It's a quiet victory, one that I celebrate not with champagne and parties, but with the steady, satisfying work of building something real, something honest, something that is truly mine. The scars are there. They always will be. but they are a reminder not of what I lost, but of what I survived. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Sometimes, sharing our own stories of survival is the most powerful thing we can do. Thank you for being here with me today. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.